All righty. Good afternoon, ladies and gentlemen. If you're thirsty, grab a water. Before you leave, I put a couple of pages together with some pros and cons of what we do and just a bit of a timeline on how a program would actually work. Everybody hear me? Yeah. Great. So, just a little bit of history of our company. As Romain said, we started business 1975. I've been with the company since I got out of high school. And other than my college, I've been with the company from the beginning. In the early 80s, there was a new product that came on board. It was called BTK. And since the early 80s, we've been using BTK to control various types of caterpillar pests. At that time, there were probably half a dozen different manufacturers. Now in Canada, I think there's only one that actually sells the product anymore. It has a terrific safety record. It is a product that has been used all over the world on many, many different types of programs. Zimmer Air Service personally have been contracted on multiple occasions to spray Toronto, Mississauga, Oakville, Burlington, Hamilton, Sarnia this year, London in the past. We sprayed Toronto Island. We have sprayed the Royal Botanical Gardens. So we've also sprayed in BC, in Surrey, in Delta. That was European, or this is European Gypsy Moth. That's Asian Gypsy Moth, different breed, but still the same product, still the same processes. So as I say, we've been doing this for a good 40 years now. This year alone, we carried out programs besides the Gypsy Moth in the local area for the municipalities, homeowners like yourself. The Grand River Conservation Authority, we also carried out larger programs in Quebec, New Brunswick, and Newfoundland. In 2019, we were contracted by the Ministry of Natural Resources to spray 100,000 hectares of forest in northwestern Ontario using BTK for a spruce budworm program. So that's all I'm going to say about Zimmer Air Service. We have a whole lot of experience and lots of equipment to carry out these types of programs. We know the processes and we know how to interface with the public, with municipalities to get this job done. A disclaimer, I'm not an entomologist. I am not an arborist. I am not a forester. I am an aerial applicator with 40-some years experience, and I have a lot of, in the trenches knowledge on this type of pest. Does everybody have an understanding of what this pest is and what it does? We've read the literature.
That might be a yes.
Okay, so, there are a couple of reasons. We talk about cycles, 7 to 10 years. I'm not particularly, I don't really buy into that 7 to 10 year cycle. Some areas, the guy called me the other day. He said, you sprayed my property 20 years ago. Can you come back again next year? Downtown Toronto, Islington and Eglinton, we've sprayed that little area 4 times since 2006. So, we can say it comes in cycles, but there's a lot of leeway in those cycles. Right now, my understanding is you folks are getting into your, possibly some areas, your third year of the cycle. And at some point, which I can't tell you, I don't think anybody can really tell you when that cycle is going to end. You know, you look for, all we do is try and save your trees, save your foliage, and keep the gypsy moth at bay until Mother Nature, thank you, kicks in with either the virus or the fungus. And from what I've seen this year, I haven't seen a whole lot of either. If you've seen a whole bunch of caterpillars dying on your trees, either in a V or hanging upside down dead, if that's the case, then possibly the virus and the fungus is building. But I haven't had a whole lot of reports that there's any widespread problem. What promotes that is wet, cool wet. We had a little cool wet before the caterpillars hatched. Once the caterpillars hatched, we've had some pretty good feeding weather for the caterpillars. They've enjoyed it quite well. So that's kind of where we're at right now. You know, everybody says, well, how, you know, we didn't have anything last year. Where did this stuff come from? And it's really hard to tell where it comes from. To say that, you know, well, I'll back up a little bit. In Kevin's report, there is the M&R report, which they do every year. They do mapping. And the mapping does suggest that there are areas in Lambton Shores of moderate to severe defoliation. So to say this is a complete surprise, it shouldn't be, because you must have had some gypsy moth here before, and they are expanding. And I think they will expand a little more before the populations collapse. Now, having said that, we are getting endless calls from North Frontenac, Peterborough County, and you look over here and there's nothing. And somehow they're exploding over there. Some of your issues, besides the egg masses that hatched out this spring, is there's a pretty severe problem in Michigan as well. And those southwest winds have not played in your favor. They've actually blown some of that infestation into your area. So, so my purpose, you know, is to basically offer our service. If you're considering doing some kind of intervention, that's what we do best. Now, in a perfect world, I would love to show up one day, just like we do in those major centers. The municipality gives us a job, we go out, do the job. At the end of the spray period, we send them an invoice and we get paid. That may or may not be the potential here, but I am at least thankful that the municipality are here and they're not trying to block something, and they would actually, I would hope to think that the municipality is going to help with the efforts to control the gypsy moth in some manner, and we're not sure how that's going to happen. One of the biggest issues that we have when we deal with a private program is every property owner has rights. So we have to actually get everybody to sign a contract, to sign off, to say that they want it done. It's no different than somebody coming in and I get a lot of cottage associations say, well, can't we just sign up under our cottage association? And the answer is no, not unless you have power of attorney for every property owner within your cottage association. That's not doable. Some municipalities, even the small municipality in Pelham in Niagara, they felt the value of the spraying was very important, so they decided to pass a bylaw within their municipality to basically not allow everybody that didn't want to do it opt out. It is an option. Whether or not it's considered in this municipality, I don't know. But when you start, you will see in the handouts when you take one, and poor Romaine, she is the objector here. So there are buffers all around this property that we would have to leave to ensure that no BTK landed on her property. There's two things. You have an objector, or you just have somebody that doesn't care. They don't want to pay. They don't care about their trees. So, that's one thing. But if somebody is adamant that they have better science than all the experts in Health Canada, and this is going to harm it's going to harm something else, it's going to harm them, and they adamantly say, you're not spraying my property, then we have to do that. We have to leave those people out of the program. So the point is, a more coordinated, contiguous spraying program is one, it's quicker, it's easier for us to do than trying to cut out little sections, and it's certainly the most effective program that you could have. So, if we're on our own, everybody has probably seen our contracts, our waivers, and everybody would have to sign on to be included in the program. And if your neighbor doesn't want to be signed on, then they're going to have to sign a waiver. Or if they won't even sign a waiver, then we basically, it's a gauge to understand whether they don't want the program or whether they're adamant. And if they're not willing to sign on, usually it's like, no, we don't want any pesticide anywhere near us. So we will have to leave a buffer. I'm glad that you guys are talking about this early, because it's very difficult to do this later in the season when everybody is gone. Probably not everybody's going to be gone to Florida or wherever they go this year, but we're all locked down with COVID. But it's best to have these discussions now and have some kind of plan. We're not asking anybody to sign up now. Not at all. We're asking you to look at the facts, consider it. In the fall, if you choose to do egg mass counts, or hire an arborist, or hire another company to try and determine whether or not you're going to have an issue next year, then you have lots of time to do that. Really what we're asking, it's the earlier the better, but the reality is March 31st is our drop dead. April 1, we decide that's the day we put our order in for BTK. BTK is a living organism. It's a biological insecticide. It's certified organic in Canada. So if you want nothing to do with pesticides, if you've eaten a salad today, it may have been sprayed with a BTK. The problem with the product is it comes from the Midwest US. They only make what they're going to sell because they can't warehouse this and sell it next year. So they would rather lose the last minute sales than build a bunch of product that they can't get rid of. Not to mention, they have a finite number of fermenters. This was originally manufactured by Abbott Laboratories, the pharmaceutical. Now they've sold it and spun it off, but it's made in fermenters. It takes some time. And in Canada, for example, in Quebec, next year there will be a budworm program that requires this product that will exceed 800,000 hectares. So there are limits to what the manufacturer can make. And so last minute orders, we couldn't get it. I mean, we could have done a lot more this year, but at the end of, I put my orders in, and then I bought the rest that was available in Ontario, and then it was done. I know I'm kind of jumping around here because I don't really have a good script, but I'm trying to hit all the high points here. Another reason why, you know, it's a good reason to do a continuous program with everybody. If you leave everybody on their own, and the first program we did in 2006 was in Mississauga, and Mayor Hazel was the mayor at that time, and she, where most politicians would not take it on, she had no problem doing it. Okay, I guess I should have brought a, Okay. Okay, so in 2006, besides the residents demanding it, they were taking interventions into their own hands. So they were out spraying from the ground up with every known pesticide that they could get their hands on, not environmentally friendly at all. So that was another reason why they got a lot of help from the municipality. They also, there was a cost to the municipality, but there was a volunteer. Some look at it like they put it on a tax bill, others they put it in a voluntary payment. Obviously you're not going to get 100% payment with a voluntary tax, but yeah, because nobody likes taxes, but you know, hopefully the people, most of those people understood, you know, the benefit, and they actually were happy to pay. And that program went on for a couple of years. So if you, so, you know, we've got up to the point now, you've done your counts, you've decided that you want to do something, then we need to start seeing these contracts come in, and we need to start mapping the properties that are going to be in the program. Am I correct? You know, we're using tax roll numbers to get property lines, and I assume that's possible here as well. So if you're looking at, you know, providing your tax roll number, then we can map that area. If we're looking at a number, you know, and that also gives us the size of your lot, and basically we can calculate the costs from that. If large scale programs, it makes it a whole lot easier. We can put all those together. And so April 1, we're buying product. We have a timeline here that you'll see that I've just put together a little bit of a timeline on what would happen. So, you know, now you're talking to your neighbors. October, November, you're going to carry out your egg mass surveys to decide what the potential for caterpillars are for next year. And then anytime in between there and March, you can contract for our services. After March 31st, we won't be able to guarantee if we can do anything for you, or we can't guarantee the price. April 1, order the product. So April 15 to April 30th, you're in a built-up area in accordance with the Canadian aviation regulations. In other words, it's illegal for me to spray this without authorization from Transport Canada. Normally, I would have to be 1,000 feet above the highest obstacle within a 2,000-foot radius. We want to be 50 feet above your treetops. So we need permission to do that, and that comes through Transport Canada. We have to submit a plan to them to tell them how we can do it safely. We may need depending on what's in the program, we may need a road closure plan to keep people out of the area during the spray period. I mean, obviously you live here, so you're not, that's fine. I mean, when we spray in major municipalities, you're doing the best you can. You know, when people are coming off the 403, going into a subdivision, we stop that. But if there are people coming out of the subdivision going to work, we don't stop that. We would also have to use a twin-engine helicopter to do the application here, just for safety. The houses or the cottages and lots are close enough together that if we had an engine failure, we really, we don't, at 50 feet off the tops of the trees, we don't have a whole lot of option on where we can go. With a twin engine, we fly it away, go land at a safe emergency landing site. We've never had an engine failure over top of a community like this, doing a program. That's never happened. But even Air Canada has had an engine failure on takeoff, so, the potential is there. So around on May 1 to the spray date, you're monitoring your larval hatch, your foliage leaf out. You've probably seen the biosim model. If you've looked on our website, there's a biosim model that we look at that tells us when 90% hatch is going to be out. And that's our trigger to that, in coordination with majority of the oak leaf out, 35 to 40%, then we'll start applying. If you wait until you can actually recognize the caterpillar, then you're way behind the game. This caterpillar is very prolific. It is very strong. We have to use the maximum rate that the label permits. We have to treat them in the early end stars, and we have to do 2 applications to be really effective. And every deviation from there, you're losing some effectiveness. If you're familiar with a forest ant caterpillar, you may have had one of those infestations before. They're easy to control. You wait until they get big. 1 application at about half the rate that we're using for gypsy moth. Excellent control. Also, because you're in, just like if you're doing a lawn care application, you need to post signs on your property. Because we're doing a wide scale program, we would propose that we do a alternate form of notification. That has to be approved by the Ministry of the Environment. So we have to put what we're going to do for notification. It has to be submitted, it has to be approved, and then 7 days in advance of an actual program, then we implement that notification program. For those that want to be notified, we would do a 24-hour notification, and we would propose that Zimmer Air Service would not be notifying every individual. We would be notifying somebody that has all the email addresses of everybody, and it's a group email that's sent out. We can't address each individual property owner on a notification. So on the spray date, this type of program, oh, excuse me, folks. My duck is quacking. So actual time to go spraying, weather conditions are right, we're going to start our applications first light. And we're probably going to be done by 8 o'clock in the morning. So, you know, we do a continuous spray from first light to then. If we have to do road closures or that kind of stuff, we can section off different areas so that there's minimal disruption. Here, I can't imagine that there would be a whole lot of traffic at first light or at sunup on a Tuesday morning. Highly unlikely, not like Toronto or Mississauga. You may not even notice the helicopter here. You're certainly, some people, if you're looking into the sun the right way, you'll see the spray coming out. If you're looking the other way, you may not even see the spray coming out, and you'll say, "You're just flying around, what's he doing?" Well, we're only applying at 1.6 liters per acre. And we're using a special rotary atomizer that breaks that up into very, very small droplets. And those droplets have to land on the foliage for the caterpillar to eat. Now, when the caterpillar eats that, it essentially, in layman's terms, it gets a bellyache, it stops feeding, and then it eventually just starves to death. So after the first application is done, we're going to probably go somewhere else and do some other work, and depending on weather and temperature and all kinds of factors, you know, we're going to come back a second time, and I say 4 to 7 days, but that's not written in stone. I mean, there is some leeway on that. Your biggest bang is to get your first application correct. The second application is to clean up everything else that you missed the first application. They're not feeding, they're not hatched out. It's cold, so not all of them are up in the canopy. And that's also another reason why the aerial application is best, because 70% of your egg hatch is above 10 meters. So, you know, cleaning all your egg masses off is great. It's all part of the solution. But when that egg hatches into a caterpillar, it doesn't come down, it goes to the crown to feed on the new leaves. When it's completely defoliated your tree, it's going to come down, and then it's going to move over to another tree and try and climb up, and that's where you're going to catch it, in your burlap and sticky tape. Or it's going to get on its little silk string and swing over or get blown over to another tree. So all your ground interventions are great, but in a severe infestation, they're not going to work. London, the forest city, prime example. 2020, 2019, they identified high egg mass counts, severe defoliation expected for 2020. They chose to use a ground intervention, and they sent arborists into the trees to collect all the egg, or pull off all the egg masses through the winter. In June, London called us and said, "That didn't work very well. Let's talk about a spray program for 2021. So I think we're back, you know, we're right up to our second application. You've got your second application done. Everybody's happy. They're sitting in their backyard, enjoying their outdoors. There's no frass falling on your head. Your deck is not covered with gypsy moth. They're not crawling up the side of your house. I haven't really spoken to, you know, I haven't gone into depth about the safety of the product. There's a wealth of information on the safety of the product. All I can say is it's not going to harm you. It's not going to harm your pets. It's not going to harm the wildlife. It's not going to control mosquitoes. It's not going to control anything but the Lepidoptera caterpillar. And everybody brings up, well, will it kill monarch butterfly caterpillar? Absolutely it will. If your monarch butterfly caterpillar is here feeding at the same time as the gypsy moth. And that's not the case. They hatch out much later. The product on the trees is going to land on the trees. It starts breaking down in ultraviolet light immediately. That's why we need to do a second application. So after about 5 days, it has no control value at all. So yes, monarch butterfly caterpillars, they feed on milkweed, but if you accidentally put some on some milkweed that filter down through, if they're feeding within the first couple, 2-3 days, that's fine. It's probably going to affect them if they were there, which they're not. But after that,
Question.
yes.
When was the first monarch sighting in Ontario this year?
Well, you obviously know, so
Do.
you can tell me.
Do. I'm so sorry. It was the first week of May.
Now, do you understand that the monarch actually comes back as an adult?
Yes, it does, and it lays eggs immediately. That's the first thing it does when it gets to Ontario. It takes 24 hours for those eggs to turn into caterpillars.
Okay, so as a layman, all I'm doing is quoting what a fellow by the name of Dr. Taylor Scarr told me last week. He was the provincial entomologist for the province of Ontario Ministry of Natural Resources. And I said, here's where I get a lot of questions about the monarch butterfly. And he said, highly unlikely, very highly unlikely. And he also said that if you're looking at non-target damage caused by the BTK, then the person driving up to the cottage has probably caused more non-target damage to insects than the BTK will in the forest.
I would like to cite then, I'm so sorry for interrupting, but
We
we've
can't
gone,
hear you. Can you speak up?
do you
You guys mind the interruption? I'm sorry. We've gotten a bit far with the misinterpretation. So I'm sorry. But I am Jessica Seekins, and I am a registered professional forester. I also carry a pesticide application license, which I do not carry this year anymore because of COVID, but I am experienced with this. I do have a question for you regarding the fact that this area specifically has 2 species of Lepidoptera that went extinct after the last gypsy moth infestation, and that we still carry the possibility and areas that are funded to regenerate those species. And they are both considered to not, you cannot spray BTK because they have an overlap. Now, when you spoke to the federal entomologist, I am absolutely certain that he would have left a caveat that had said, but the site conditions on the day must be measured. I am absolutely certain that a professional would never, ever, ever speak outside of a probability range, because that's just not how we engage in dialect. And so I would like to cite a report from the BC Ministry of Forests, and it declares that after 4 years, there was not a complete recovery, and that the rare species were the ones that were the least recovered. And this was an in-depth report. And this was in one of those cases where you were surrounded by forests where these species could come back into. But here you see we are in an island, and we have fields on one side, and you are correct that BT is commonly used in agriculture. But this is the forest, and that is the pinery. And should we manage it as a field? And so
There's no management in the pinery at all.
you are correct about that, because they have studies that have reported, unlike what you have suggested, that the amount of impact on non-target species exceeds what the level of the effect on the trees would be. So one of your first statements was that if people do not want to spray, it's because they do not care about the trees. And I just wish that you would have been more cautious with your language about the single tree, but here we are in the oak savanna, which if you would like to write a silviculture prescription for our region, you would actually address the fact that it's maturing quite quickly and that shade is actually inhibiting the oak savanna species from regenerating. And so an insect infestation, albeit this is a non-native species, however, it is still an insect infestation, which is completely normal to maintain oak savanna habitat. Now, I also, like I said, had a pesticide applicator's license. It's not that I am completely against that, but I just wish that you would be a little bit more cautious with what you're saying, because you are speaking very definitively about topics. The first thing you said was that you were not an entomologist. So I think that when it comes to, you don't know, you were saying that you would not kill a monarch, it's not here, but it was here during the spray. And secondly, when we speak about residuals, I'm sure that you do know that there are numerous reports, and it's specific to the forest canopy, of residuals up to 30 days. And that is because the two things that break down BT are sunlight and rain. And it is so difficult to get a sufficient amount of sunlight or rain into the forest canopy to completely break it down. So when you're talking about 2 drops that could be possibly distanced by 14 days, we're talking about a possibility of over 30 days of BT in the oak savanna forest, where here we've lost 2 Lepidoptera species that were near and dear to our forest. There was a numerous set of species that they didn't even identify. So there's things that are going extinct faster than of course, than we can even go to label it. So I am not saying to anyone here, like, please do your own property, but to the mayor and to the municipality, please consider why people come to our region, and that you're missing the forest for the trees at this moment in time, because it's a great year to be a caterpillar.
Well, I think, okay, I think you've made your point. I can assuredly, I can give you the entomologist's name, and if you give me your contact information, I can provide it to him, and he can have a conversation with you. When you say,
maybe we should speak to somebody who's like
Yes,
really
I think it's his turn to respond.
I'm
Just
sorry.
let him talk, and then we'll get back to you. Please answer, Paul.
okay, so, you know, the point is, I rely on the experts to tell me. Now, when you say somebody close, well, you know, I don't know. He was the provincial entomologist for Ontario. So to suggest that he is not qualified because he's not from Port Franks is really inaccurate. If you would like nature to take its course, that is an option. But the gypsy moth caterpillar is not natural. And in evolution, 150 years will not produce sufficient natural controls to control the caterpillar. Ten years ago, you said that there was spraying here that wiped that caterpillar out. The amount of product, the amount of area that probably was sprayed was probably minuscule. And I think it's very misleading to suggest that that was a cause of eliminating a different Lepidopteran caterpillar larva. Thank you.
In the Ontario Ministry of Natural Resources Species Recovery Plan, like you can look this up, it attributes their decline to the spray BT. I did not invent this. This is in the recovery plan for the 2 species.
Yes.
I'm going to take my mask off, so you might want to get away from me. This is Jessica, and you're Paul?
Yes.
6 of my neighbors sprayed their yards with all different chemicals. We went and bought Ortho Maximum Defense. So you've got one spraying of BTK, or neighbors spraying all kinds of different things. 2 hired companies, one from Kitchener to come in, and another one, I think, from Ipperwash to come in. And so the question is, what were they spraying? Because it didn't get rid of the gypsy moths. They came back like 2 weeks later.
Well, I can't answer what those companies were spraying. I can't attest to timing. There's so many things I don't know. But, if
My point is that whatever all those different sprays were, couldn't have been healthy.
yeah, well, again,
Can I ask, in your experience, because obviously I don't know,
Ortho maximum defense.
obviously you're, like you're saying that you're not an entomologist or whatever. So in your experience, the people that sprayed, so they hired you to spray, and then let's say their neighbors didn't. And in your experience, did the ones that sprayed but their neighbors didn't, did they call you to spray again because they transported over?
on a rare occasion, and on the most part, it does a reasonable job. This isn't a scorched earth scenario, so there are always going to be some caterpillars. Will those leftover caterpillars on the unsprayed area migrate? I mean, they want to, they want to eat. They want to eat. So, can I guarantee you that if you're next to a no spray zone, that the caterpillars aren't going to come on your property? They don't understand property lines. They're I like eating filet mignon, but if there's nothing to eat, I'm going to eat whatever is in front of me. And so if you have a nice tasty meal up there, I'm moving to your property. I hate to say it, but will you receive benefit? Yes. Will you receive 100% benefit? No.
So saying that, like, we have obviously a lot of oaks around here, and we've noticed that the maple trees have been damaged, the shrubs, bushes. Are they also affecting the cedars and the pine trees?
Well, certainly pine. We talk about, the MNR keeps talking about, oh, well, you can defoliate your trees.
But the pines and the cedars are not.
No, they're dead. They're going to die.
They're gonna die.
I mean, I went down 21 here, and I couldn't believe the pines that are dead.
And they're not coming back, are
No,
they? No.
highly unlikely.
It's really.
They are quite an invasive species.
Yes.
And so we're not just regenerating. We are talking about a lot of other trees.
Well, the oak leaves sooner or later won't regenerate.
But I mean, look at some of the trees that are 50 years old or 30 years old, or even newly planted trees that people have spent a lot of time
And money.
and all of a sudden this is all gone. I don't know if where you live is just a cottage or your permanent residence. Not that it should matter, but it's still, we need the trees. I think more than the gypsy moths.
Well, I mean, yeah, the trees do a lot of things. They are a habitat for a whole lot of wildlife. So, beyond the human factor where you need your shade, you need your outdoor enjoyment.
Oh, absolutely.
If you get a certain number of years of defoliation, even on the oaks, to say that it really doesn't affect them, that's a misnomer. So if you lose your growth, don't you? You lose your growth. If you're going to have some dieback eventually, eventually you're going to get some tree mortality. That's a couple of things. That's a liability, and it's a cost to bring that tree down. So, I'm not advocating that, I'm not saying that everybody needs to spray. I'm saying these are your options. And you need to weigh those. Every one of those options you need to weigh and make a decision.
Yeah, I think we're kind of losing track here of why you're here.
Yes.
You're here to explain
Yeah.
your process.
Yeah. So essentially, I've gone through my process. We've done our 2 applications. We're done. We expect you to have excellent control, even though there's going to be all kinds of areas across the road in a forest that isn't owned by you that may not be, may have no interventions at all. So.
Question, Paul. Were you spraying June 1st here?
No, we did not spray this year.
There was one helicopter flying by, 6:30 in the morning.
That was Great Lakes. It was Great Lakes helicopter.
Great Lakes, oh.
They were spraying in
back and forth. I got it on video.
Yes, sir.
Question about egg mass counts. In your letter to, excuse me. In your letter to Kevin Williams, you mentioned that Toronto used a 10 to 15 egg mass per tree as a criteria.
Yeah, well, that's based on, it's based on 1,200 egg masses per hectare. Now, there are some caveats to that, you know, the type, the mix, how many trees you have in the area. But, you know, when you have a certain density of trees, then they use, he broke it down for me and he said, that's our criteria. If we reach that criteria, we look at an aerial spray program. If we don't reach that criteria, then we don't. We may just inject some trees with neem, or they may just not do anything.
Well, just as an FYI, before the meeting I took my dog for a 40-minute walk. I counted egg masses on all the oak trees I saw on Edward Lane and Riverside. There was not one oak tree in that count that was under 30 egg masses per branch, not per tree, per branch.
Yes.
I counted all the egg, well, I started to count, by the time I got to 50, I said, what the hell?
Yeah. No, I mean, obviously that's going to be a severe infestation. The only hope that you have, and we don't have that much of a hope anymore, that you have a severe winter to kill off some of those egg masses.
Well, I guess my point is, I know we're talking, Mr. Mayor, about doing an egg count in the fall / winter. I'm a little concerned about, is that too late? You know, I can count eggs. Why can't we start doing that count now? I realize the rationale is because the leaves are hiding the eggs, you know, in the canopy. But, well, we don't have that many leaves to hide.
Exactly.
Why don't we start now, or at least prepare for the fact, what I think is the inevitable. We're not going to have a deforestation or an infestation next year. We're going to have a natural atomic bomb come off. Port Frank has got to look like the Sahara.
They've been counting on a collapse for the last 2 years, and it hasn't happened. And they're saying that a collapse is due, like when you see a number of egg masses, then you think, okay, so the egg mass count is really down, which means probably NPV got them. I did see some caterpillars in the V formation, so obviously NPV is building, but on my own trees, I'm seeing like 50 egg masses on the bottom, like already.
Right.
So, and I don't think the egg masses are as big as they were last year, like in this actual size of the egg mass, but there's far more egg masses.
Right.
So I don't think that it'll make a difference. Like, I mean, everyone was hoping for a collapse, and that would have been great, a natural collapse. That'd be great. But unless the egg count proves completely different than what I expect, it looks like it would be year 3 in some places or year 4 in others, and even the oaks won't survive a 4th year defoliate.
Paul, you mentioned earlier in your talk about spraying M&R land in Northern Ontario.
Yes.
I thought the policy of M&R was not to spray.
Well, the M&R, I mean, we're talking spruce budworm, so we're not talking gypsy moth. Oh. Yeah, they don't worry about that. Don't worry about it. Yeah, they don't control gypsy moth. It's been the 80s. The Ministry of Natural Resources actually used to run the programs. The province used to partially fund the programs, and the counties used to coordinate the programs. And they stopped doing that a long time ago. So now we're to the point where the Ministry of Natural Resources don't even have any foresters. You can't even call them up and get an answer from them because they're all Sault Ste. Marie North. And like I say, they didn't even replace their one working entomologist. Now they have the guy who used to do the tree sampling for him. Dan Rowlandson is now in his shoes, but he certainly can't answer the questions that Taylor could answer. So, but yes, the MNR will do interventions with BTK on Crown land. They just won't do it on private land.
Paul, are you able to give some ballpark figure what it costs per acre or?
Well, you know, the way my structure is right now, because it's piecemeal, is each individual owner up to 1 acre pays $357. That's including HST. Anything above 1 acre, so if you had 6 acres, you would pay $357 plus $96 per acre above that. The contract is essentially to, you know, it's a management. You know, basically, I have to manage that contract. I have to come out and do presentations. I have to do mapping. I have to do all kinds of things that, as a private operator, you know, cost me money. I have to recover that money. Otherwise, I can't come to work.
But if there was one contract, let's say that there was a scenario where they did actually pass a bylaw and it was one contract, then is that one
Yeah.
contract of 357 and then
No, I mean, if,
scenario is
well, the reality is, I mean, if I,
property?
when I work with municipalities that put the programs together, all I do is show up on site and do the application. Those, depending on what I'm looking at, where I have to go to do it, range between $900 and $1,200 per hectare. That's about $500 an acre. But, like I say, they're doing everything. They're coordinated, you know, they have their foresters out there. They hire, either they do that or they hire a contractor to determine the counts on where they need to spray. They do the public notification. The only thing I do is I get the ministerial authorization because I have to interface with Transport Canada. I'm the only guy that can do that, and but everything else is done by the municipality. You know, I mean, I also have to charge each individual. I mean, that 357 isn't 357 to me, it's around 315 plus HST. Now, when I charge a municipality to do that, the municipality recovers that HST, so, you know, the cost is less per homeowner because I'm sure they're claiming the HST. Whether they pass that down to their residents in their taxes, I don't know how they do that. That has, you know, that's nothing to do with what we're doing here, but. So, yes.
I know I appreciate Jessica's enthusiasm and her interest in the environment because we need that. I know people park plants have been here for 25 years, and I know we do love our trees. We do take care of them, spend a lot of money making sure they're healthy. I know I, as a person, would feel far safer knowing that if there was one person doing the least invasive type of spraying, then every household trying to determine what they want to do to kill these invaders. Because if you're doing one and I'm doing one, the mixture and the damage that's going to be caused by us doing it individually, I would just feel much more confident as a person who lives here, knowing that somebody who knows what they're doing is doing it. And
Right.
I just appreciate you telling us all this information.
You're welcome. I'm happy to show up. Any other questions?
Yeah, I got just one
Yes, sir.
question. There's something, well, I know I can confidently speak for a lot of us that we did a lot of ground control, and personally I feel it was futile. It was a never-ending battle, and I wasn't. What my concern is that we do one more effort that in futile. There's something in your presentation that just caught my ear. It was, I forget what municipality you said, but you had to go back 4 times, 5 times since 2008. I forget what municipality.
2006.
Because it was, yeah,
There's one small neighborhood in the city of Toronto that for some reason they continue to have a recurring problem every 3 or 4 years. I don't know why.
You don't know why that.
I don't know why. I mean, for example, we sprayed parts of Toronto Island once since 2007. So whether that one particular area, there's always a certain presence of gypsy moth. I mean, they never really go away. They stay under control most of the times. And why they have a major outbreak, I mean, I can't really speak to that. I'm the guy who gets called up to intervene when it happens.
Right. I guess my concern is I know there's no guarantee.
No, but I mean, okay, well, I mean, you look at Port Franks. When was the last time you had a major infestation?
Pardon me?
When was the last time you had a major infestation? 99. So the chances, I mean, things are changing. Temperatures are changing. The environment is changing. So there's nothing written in stone anywhere that says every 10 years it's going to come back. But it's been 10 years, 9 years since the last one. So would I expect that you're going to have a major infestation 1 year, 2 years drop off, and then you have another one? I have no reason to suspect that would happen, but I mean, I can't guarantee anything of that nature.
Question?
Yeah.
You're driving around.
You're next.
Here, you're looking all around. Is this a major infect around here?
Is this a major infestation?
Yeah.
Well, I see a lot of defoliation, but to do a proper assessment and to count egg masses, and this gentleman went out and walked it. I'm just driving around taking a look like a tourist. So, but I mean, one of my pilots went down 21, and his 12-year-old daughter looks up and says, "Dad, what's wrong with the trees?" Now, she come up from her cell phone to do that. You know what they're like. But, a 12-year-old noticed that all the trees had no foliage anymore. So, to me, I say you're in an infestation. So, yes, sir.
Yeah, it's just more of a comment. The lad over there was talking about counting egg masses already. I just thought I'd throw out there that right now I'm up to 1,100 that I sprayed.
1,100, yeah.
And you don't have to go around and count the egg masses. Just look at the bottom of your trees. You'll see hundreds and hundreds of white moths, which are the females,
Yeah,
laying
that's right.
belly up.
Yep,
They've already laid their egg masses up in the trees that you can't get to,
yep.
and they're dead there. So I think we have to be proactive and move forward with something. That's just my 10 cents. I agree with you.
Agreed.
I can't do this again. The amount of shit that I've had to sweep up is disgusting.
Yes. Living in.
Pardon my language.
Not just that, it's killing the trees. You're completely covered with a rash all the time. It's horrible. Itchy, you can't breathe. These hairs you're breathing them in. It's horrible.
Yes.
For like, 6-7 weeks we lived with that?
More than that.
Of the actual caterpillars?
Oh my gosh.
Yeah, it was horrible. It was horrible.
Yeah, it was allergic as well.
Yeah.
And things like forever. And with COVID-19 and then
Oh, on
coughing.
top of it.
I'm coughing because of the moth, and you're like thinking, oh my God, is everyone thinking I'm, got COVID-19?
Yeah.
I have a question for Mayor Weber.
Mayor Weber's just here as a citizen today, so you cannot answer the question or not, Mayor Weber. You're not really on the hot seat.
No, as a matter of fact, I was encouraged by Romaine's conversation with you a week or two ago, whenever that was, you personally seem to be open. If the egg count proves it, to spraying. I guess my question though is, if we don't do the egg count until this fall or this winter, and it's going to be an awful lot of logistics to make that happen if the count says spray. Are you doing anything now in anticipation that that might happen? Preliminary planning.
I guess we're open to whatever we can do, and Paul had mentioned the time frame that is there when you do the egg counts, when you order the sprays, when you put things together. So whether the egg counts are done now or whether they're done in October, November, and December, I think we'll be ready to go. We can mobilize and get things put in place. I know right now it's on top of mind for everyone, but it will still be in October. So I think we can put things in place. I know our CAO has put together the report that's there and the timing that's there, and together with Zimmer Air services, and we'll have to contract that if the municipality is part of it, whether it's paid for, how it's paid for, whether it's back on taxes or where it goes, whether it goes to the individual property owners. It'll have to be, all that stuff has to be worked out. The county is also working on some, looking at the county forest and different surveys of that. We're also going to talk with the Pinery Park and others to see where it goes. There's a lot of other neighborhoods. I know we have very few, but we have some up in here in Woods in my neighborhood. And I know there's a group of neighbors from the association that are monitoring what's going on, watching that, and talking to the neighbors, and there'll be egg counts in the different areas as well. But I think that's going to happen this fall. So we'll certainly, council has supported getting the reports and getting the information that we need by the 1st of December, that we'll have time to go and put things together.
I will say that that Lambton Shores has been pretty responsive. I mean, Kevin is the one that called me to come up and take a look, and that's when I flew up and took him for a flight over. And it's certainly a breath of fresh air compared to, for example, North Frontenac, that considered or tried to pass a bylaw to not allow any spraying in their municipality. So, is late fall too late? No. It's just lucky that I don't, I'm not out there flying, or I'm not the operations manager anymore. If I was, this would be sitting on the back burner, because we're flat out busy doing other things until the end of September, and we wouldn't be doing anything about it anyway. So, don't worry about timing. Just don't forget about it. I'm sure you're not going to do that, but come the fall, there's still lots of time to make things happen. So.
I guess the reason behind my.
Actually need to hire you.
Pardon me?
When do we need to hire you? When do you say no, I can't do that? Kind of.
March 31st.
That is still March 31st, even with the BTK, okay.
Everybody take one of these on the way out, and you'll see the timeline. I have to order on April 1. So by March 31st, I'm going to need to know who's in, who's out. I mean, obviously, it'd be nice to know a little bit before that, so that we can map the areas, but that's the drop dead date. Yes, sir.
Question for the mayor again. Do not think it's a waste of time to go around hiring people. It's thousands and thousands of acres. I would put that towards the spring. Does that make more sense? Because that makes more sense to me than having somebody go around, hand somebody in town and dig, and then pay them. Well, we need to spray. There's thousands of eggs up here. I should have collected the caterpillars and present them to you, or some of the fruit. I swept up the front of my street with 8 wheelbarrows full of caterpillars. And this is the worst summer I've had in my life. Not only with COVID-19, caterpillars. As a clean taxpayer, I'm fed up. So either we're gonna straighten this out, or I'm losing.
Any
Absolutely.
more questions for Paul? Mr. Mayor, I don't know that you want to respond to that or not, but if anybody has any questions for Paul, we probably want to wrap up in about 5.
Grab a bottle of water too. I'm not carting this away.